I've covered 19 political conventions beginning 1976 and ending 2016. By 2016, the conventions really had become stale and kind of unfriendly to the press, quite frankly. And we'll talk about these. But I want to start with 1976, which was the very first one I covered. And I only did the Republicans that year, and it was in Kansas City, and it was just kind of essentially up the block from where I had owned newspapers there in Oklahoma. So I ran on and up to Kansas City, and walked in, had no credentials at the point where I walked in. They were friendly folks. They gave me convention entrance and kind of the run of the place, and even found me accommodations. So there I was. And indeed, it was in Kemper Arena, and all of the party heavyweights showed up there and in the process of nominating Gerald Ford, who was president at the time. And about 4 months after this, Kemper Arena, the brand new arena in Kansas City, which I'm very proud of, Kansas City, Kansas, actually, over by the stockyards. The whole thing caved in one night. Would have killed everybody in the party, which probably would have suited the Democrats, who, by the way, did win that year. Jimmy Carter, at the time the governor of Georgia, former governor of Georgia, won. Well, anyway, so there I am. I walk into Kemper Arena for the first time, to the first convention, and I realize I'm in a TV studio. I've worked in TV over in St. Louis and over in Columbia, Missouri. I knew what a TV studio looked like, and this was bright and glitzy and really a lot of light, and it was clear that it wasn't some smoke-filled room that they'd been like back in the 40s and early 50s. This was designed for color TV, and they had big booths, and they were ready to go. And so there I was, and the press site was in an adjoining room, which was the Kansas City Stockyards, essentially. And so you walk across to that, and you'd have, they actually provided me, I don't think they provided me, no, they didn't give me workspace, I didn't ask for it in 1976. Anyway, so I'm over in, and this is a crazy thing I'm learning pretty quickly, because it's the standard 15,000 members of the press, 2,000 delegates, 2,000 alternates. So we're looking at a press convention here, folks. The delegates are really pretty much got to stay in their own place. The press, we got the run of the place. So anyway, and it's a happy, kind of merrily zoo. The fellow running Kemper, who I ran into at one point, and I was talking about it, and how often you rent the place, and it's brand new, and how's it going? He said, well, we rent it quite a lot. And he said, the last thing in here was a kind of rock concert, and he said, got a little blue in here. And I said, well, that would have been marijuana. And he said, yep, lots of marijuana. I said, well, isn't that against the law, and how do you feel about it? He said, we're renting the place. We're making a buck on the place. We're trying to keep body and soul together here in Kemper Arena. So we looked the other way. Okay. So anyway, I'm walking through the press site where all they've got a whole bunch of offices for the Washington Post and St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and they're all there at this point, Minneapolis Star Tribune. And as I'm going, and I've got a floor pass, I've got a to get into the arena Kemper pass, I've got a press pass to get me into this. And so I'm all decked out with all these passes on a Christmas tree. And that's kind of, by the way, how always would be, except the only Christmas tree got longer and longer as they added kind of more things as they went on. So for later conventions, what I'm talking about. So as I'm moving through here comes a dog. Okay, a dog. I mean, I've gone through 3 or 4 security things to get here. How's a dog get in here? I stop the dog and take a look. The dog's got the same credentials I've got. He can go on camper, he can come in here, he can come in. Who accredited the dog? I mean, how did the dog get there? Well, dog had ABC, American Broadcasting Company credentials. He's a press dog. So I called him. And or maybe I went over, I forget how. But anyway, I know the guys over at ABC. And I said, by the way, I ran into a dog who's got all the credentials. He said, where is he? We haven't seen that dog in a couple of days. And other people are feeding him, and he's just kind of, he's having a good time, I'm sure. You know, and he's going outside relieving himself, I guess. But where's our dog? I said, well, last time I saw him, I said, how should I know where your dog is? I also was sitting in one of these sort of press conference kind of things, and comes this very attractive lady and sits down next to me, and I'm in the process of being picked up, and she kind of wants me to know who she is, and she's got this Nikon camera, and she said, well, I don't know how to. I've run out of film in the Nikon camera, and Nikon's got a booth here, then they'll fix things and so forth, but you want me to take my Nikon camera and you want to come with me and we'll go over and see the Nikon people, and I'm going to say to them, hey guys, hey, you got any idea how you change film in your Nikon cameras? And I'm betting they're going to know how. Well, that's exactly what we do. And the guys go, yes. Very cheerful guys. Yeah, we can take care of that. Then he says to me, would you like us to show you how to change the film in the camera so the next time you don't have to come back here? And I said, actually, show her. So then the next stop with this attractive young lady is over at one of the largest newspapers in the country, or let's just say larger. We're not going to tell you the name of it. Okay, and she goes in, she said, I need to go in and I ask a question here. Well, they happen to know her because she's the granddaughter or great-granddaughter of the family that owns it and so forth and so on. She wanted me to know that. So now I know that, okay. So we proceed to kind of hang out and a bit. And then I'm on my way to somewhere that evening. And, you know, she heads back to, I don't know, go to the room or somewhere. And I said, you know, if you want to go, then meet me in front of the municipal hall over in the Kansas City side, 5 o'clock. It doesn't mean 5:01 or 5:02, because if you're not there, I'm going. So I pull up about 5:00, and there, very primly, she's setting them ready. Off we go. So anyway, we got along, and as we come to the sort of the end of it, she said a very interesting thing to me. I mean, conventions were kind of, probably then and now, I'm sure, kind of free-for-alls. You meet people, it's like, you know, passing friendship or friendship with benefits. And so, you know, the night before the last of it all, when we're kind of heading in different directions, you know, I said, well, you know, come over and spend the night with me. And she said, something that got said to me a couple of times over the years is, you know, I really don't want to screw this up. How are you going to screw this up? Well, the reality is, she says, and this, you know, that I could really get involved in you, and if I'm going to get involved with you, then I need to do it in a more studied way. You go, what's a more studied way? Jesus. And in reality, we hang out. And she has grand plans. So do you remember, I own a newspaper this time. Actually, a couple of newspapers, and I'm doing pretty well, you know. And I don't really have a lot of interest in working for somebody else because right now right then and kind of for always, I was pretty much able to come and go and do what I want. Newspapers were an easy business to be in. And so we hung out quite a bit in the coming years when it became apparent that we weren't going to be more than that. She found a guy in a newsroom of one of the newspapers they own, and and he fathered her children, and they went on and had. We kind of stayed in touch off and on, but I went different directions too. The other stories about the convention, that first convention and the surprises were that it wasn't clear whether Ford was going to be nominated or not. He was very close, but well, actually, he had enough votes to be clear. But Ronald Reagan was right there, and if the people who were there, delegates, had a chance, they'd pick Ford. They'd pick Reagan, rather. But on the first ballot, the delegates were pledged to Ford, and this is back in the time when people did what they said they were going to do and agreed to do. So the Reagan people were very smart. They only needed to get about 10 or 20. I think it was like under 15 delegates to say, you know, I think I'm going to stay a little longer at dinner and not vote tonight. And if they did that, then Ford would not have enough votes, and he had a majority, to be nominated on the first ballot. And if it went to the second ballot, Reagan would have been nominated in 1976. But that's not how it went down. And we would see ex-Governor Ronald Reagan, ex-Governor of California, in 4 years in Detroit, where he would be nominated, and that was a great story indeed. The other thing is about these conventions is that and this is true all the way through, is that the press was watered and fed. And that is not a very good reflection on the press. Essentially, they were, gimme, you know, feed me. You know, and early on, AT&T fed them, and the railroads fed them, and I fed Pete. And then later on, there would be enormous amount of beer and alcohol available and so forth, and drugs, lots of drugs around if one was willing to partake in that. So that was 1976 in Kansas City, and the next up is Detroit in 1980 with the Republican Convention. We'll talk about that next.